This is WeOTV. We're Eyeing Our World Television Network.
Real stories, timeless melodies, lasting legacies. History comes to life through music and storytelling.
"56 men signed their names in summer heat. Farmers left their fields, soldiers bare their feet. Women held the home fires through the cold and rain, praying that their loved ones would come home again. 250 years of bleeding and believing, 250 years of breaking and rebuilding. Every scar upon this land, every hope held in these hands, still becoming, still becoming, still becoming free. Harriet walked through darkness, Frederick raised his voice. Ruby walked to school one day and gave us all a choice. Soldiers crossed the ocean, workers built the dream. Nothing ever came here easy, nothing's what it seems. 250 years of bleeding and believing, 250 years of breaking and rebuilding. Every scar upon this land, every hope held in these hands, still becoming, still becoming, still becoming free. We were born in contradiction, half a promise, half a chain. But every generation chose to try again. Not the myth, but the reaching. Not the fall, but the rise. 250 years of asking, do we mean it this time? We've come through the flood.
This land was written in sweat
And tears and blood.
come through the winter
Well, step into the light.
to the light.
250 years of fighting for the right.
250 years
of bleeding and believing,
250 years
of breaking and This work is never done, but we are free. This work is never done, but we are free. Still becoming free.
Still becoming free.
Still becoming free.
Still becoming free.
Before the sun fully rises, a man is already standing at the edge of a field. His name is Thomas. His hands are rough from years of gripping axe handles and plow handles and fence posts that never wanted to stay where he put them. His boots are worn thin at the heel. The sky above his Virginia farm is the deep purple of early morning, and somewhere in the east, a thin line of orange is beginning to push through the dark. He does not think of himself as part of history. He thinks about the fence line on the north side of the property that needs mending before the first frost. He thinks about whether the corn will make it to harvest. He thinks about his wife, Mary, who is already awake inside the house, already at the fire, already turning the wheel of the day with her steady, capable hands. This is the first hard dawn, not the dawn of legend, not the dawn of monuments and speeches in marble columns, the plain, cold, honest dawn of people who have something to do and not enough hours to do it in. Across this young and bewildering country, thousands of mornings exactly like this one are beginning simultaneously. A woman in Massachusetts pulls on her work apron before the children wake. A man in Georgia checks the sky for weather before he decides what the day will hold. A family in Pennsylvania reads a letter from a son who has gone west and not come back yet. They are building something, not always with the awareness that they are building it, mostly just by showing up day after day in the cold and the heat, through the dry years and the wet years, holding the line against the 1,000 ordinary ways that life tries to come apart. The rails came later. When they came hard, with the ring of hammers on iron spikes, with the grunt of men driving steel through mountain stone, with the dust of the Nevada desert rising in white columns against a blue sky so bright it hurt to look at. The men who built the Transcontinental Railroad were immigrants and freedmen and Irish laborers and Chinese workers who had crossed the Pacific with nothing but their labor and their willingness to bet everything on a country that had not yet decided whether it wanted them. They did not always get a fair return on that bet, but the rails went down anyway, mile by mile through terrain that seemed designed by nature to say no, through the Sierra Nevada, through the alkali flats, through the long cold nights when the wind came off the mountains and cut right through whatever you were wearing. Every spike driven was a kind of argument. We are here. This is ours too. We built this. And the country moved. Not gracefully, not without violence and loss and deep injustice, but it moved. West across the prairies, up into the mountain territories, down into valleys where the soil was rich and black and willing to grow things if you were willing to ask it right. Hearts did the rest. That is not a small statement. The engineering was extraordinary. The labor was brutal. But what kept a family moving forward on a wagon trail in the middle of nowhere, 300 miles from the nearest town, their water running low, and one of the children running a fever, that was something that does not fit in a ledger book. That was a quality of the human heart that has no proper name. Stubbornness, maybe. Love, certainly. The specific kind of hope that is less like a feeling and more like a decision you make every morning before you allow yourself to think too hard about the odds. The century turned, and the country turned with it. The children and grandchildren of the farmers came to the cities. They came from Appalachian hollers and Georgia fields and the villages of southern Italy and the shtetls of Eastern Europe, and the mountains of China and the islands of the Caribbean. They came speaking dozens of languages, carrying the cooking of dozens of cultures in their hands and their memories. The factory floors waited for them. steel mills in Pittsburgh, textile mills in the Carolinas, meatpacking plants in Chicago. The work was loud and relentless and often dangerous. The hours were long. The pay was rarely enough. Rivers ran with the color of whatever the mill was producing that week. The dust of a dozen different industries settled into the lungs of the workers and stayed there. And yet, in the neighborhoods that grew up around the factories, in the dense, improbable city blocks where a Polish family might live above an Italian family, across the street from a Jewish family, next door to a black family who had come north on the Great Migration, something was happening. A patchwork was being made. Not easily. The seams of it were sometimes violent. The borrowed meals were sometimes born of necessity so sharp it ached. But the neighborhood bands played on summer evenings when the heat lifted slightly and people came out to sit on stoops. The kids who sang in church choirs and street corners and school auditoriums were making a music that had never existed before, pulling together the threads of a dozen different traditions into something new and specifically, unmistakably American. Jazz, gospel, blues, country, rock and roll, hip-hop. Every generation, the kids took what their parents had survived and turned it into a song. Every scar turned gold by the way we heal. We were rough. Let us not pretend otherwise. This country has been rough in ways that should still make us uncomfortable to say out loud. The roughness of slavery, the roughness of what was done to the people who were already here when the settlers came, the roughness of the internment camps, the lynching trees, the sundown towns, the doors that said no in 100 different languages. The roughness of the internment camps, the lynching trees, the sundown towns, the doors that said no in 100 different languages. We were rough, but we were also new, stubbornly, sometimes infuriatingly new, in the sense that a new thing carries within it the possibility of becoming something that has never existed before. The experiment was real, even when the execution was a catastrophe. The words written in the summer of 1776 were real words, even when the men who wrote them failed to live up to them. And so the line held. Not always clearly, not always heroically. Sometimes the line held because one stubborn woman decided she was not going to stop marching. And sometimes it held because a jury came back with the right verdict when everyone expected the wrong one. And sometimes it held simply because enough people showed up to vote that the thing they feared did not come to pass. Through the storm, through the fire, the Civil War was a storm that killed more Americans than any other war in history. The Great Depression was a fire that burned through the economy like a dry summer through tall grass. There were plagues and droughts and recessions and moments when the whole fragile structure seemed to be coming apart at every seam simultaneously. And then, bruised, bold, having learned something the hard way, it began again. This is not triumphalism. This is not the pretense that everything has worked out fine. It is the more honest and in some ways more remarkable observation that after every winter, no matter how cold, no matter how long, people found a way to begin again. The dreams that changed this country were not always made in grand halls. Some of them were made at kitchen tables. A woman in Seneca Falls, New York, sitting at a kitchen table with other women, writing the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal," deliberately echoing the founders, deliberately demanding inclusion in the promise. A man in Montgomery, Alabama, sitting at a kitchen table at midnight, death threats on the phone, and fear in his chest, deciding not to give up, deciding that the fear was real, but the cause was realer. A girl in a small town doing her homework at a kitchen table by lamplight, because her parents had told her, and she believed them, that education was the one thing nobody could take away from her. A first-generation immigrant family, sitting at a kitchen table, on the night before the naturalization ceremony, practicing the oath of citizenship together, stumbling over the words, laughing at themselves, trying again. The shipyard clanged, the factories roared, the railroads thundered across the continent. But at the kitchen table, quietly, without ceremony, the real work was being done. The work of deciding what to believe in. The work of passing it to the next generation. The work of holding on to the dream, even when the evidence for it was thin. Let the old flag wave, not as a declaration of superiority, not as a banner of perfection, but as what it actually is, a piece of cloth that has flown over 2.5 centuries of human life on this continent, over the best of us and the worst of us, over the courthouse and the schoolhouse and the farmhouse and the cemetery, over the parades and the protests, over the homecomings and the funerals. It has flown over worn-out boots and the seeds we sowed. The boots of a Continental Army soldier wrapping his bleeding feet in rags at Valley Forge. The boots of a suffragette who marched until her feet gave out and then marched again the next day. The work boots of a Depression-era farmer who planted seeds in soil that the dust storms had nearly stripped bare, because what else were you going to do? The seeds we sowed, not just corn and wheat and cotton, the seeds of ideas, the seed of the proposition that people should be able to govern themselves, the seed of the belief that the law should apply equally to everyone, the seeds planted by teachers in underfunded schools who believe their students deserve the world, the seeds planted by parents who told their children they could be more than the circumstances of their birth. From the shore to the plain, from the mountain air, this is not a small country, it is enormous, physically, culturally, linguistically, historically enormous. The experience of a lobsterman in Maine, and the experience of a rancher in Montana, and the experience of a farm worker in the San Joaquin Valley, and the experience of a tech worker in Austin, and the experience of a schoolteacher in rural Mississippi are not the same experience. They are not even close to the same experience. And yet, from all of those different places, across all of those different lives, voices are calling out the same thing. We are here. We are here. We are still here. We survived the thing that was supposed to finish us. We raised our children in the middle of difficulty, and they are still singing. We planted in soil that did not want to give, and something grew. 250 years. Think about what that means in human terms. If your great-great-great-great-grandmother was born in 1776, she might have told her daughter about the year the Declaration was signed. Her daughter told her daughter. Her daughter told her daughter. Her daughter told you. 6 generations of people carrying the story forward. 6 generations of people who are proud of some of it and ashamed of some of it and uncertain about a lot of it and committed, in spite of everything, because of everything, to keeping it going. Open eyes, not closed, not the soft focus of nostalgia or the hard squint of cynicism. Open eyes that can see the beauty and the ugliness simultaneously and choose anyway to believe that the beauty is what we are reaching toward. We rise, not because everything is fine, not because the work is done, but because rising is what the people who came before us did, in conditions worse than ours, with less certainty than we have, with fewer resources and more to lose, and somehow they left us a country worth arguing about, worth singing about, at the top of your lungs, on a warm July evening with people you love, even the ones you disagree with, even across the lines of everything that divides us. Because underneath all of it, underneath the noise and the division and the very real and legitimate grievances, underneath all of it, 250 years of shared experience has made us, improbably, a people. We've come this far. Look back at where we started. That trembling hand over the parchment, the farmer at the edge of the field, the first hard dawn, and look where we are standing now. We have come an extraordinary distance. Not far enough. Never far enough. There is still so much unfinished business in the promissory note written in 1776 that some days it feels like we have barely started. There are still boots wearing through at the sole. There are still kitchen table dreams that never got their chance. There are still voices calling out "We are here" that the rest of the country has not yet learned to hear. The future belongs to us, not to the version of us that is easy or comfortable or unaware of our own history. The future belongs to the version of us that is bruised and bold and willing to bend, that knows what the night getting cold feels like and chooses to begin again anyway. We stand together here, not in perfect agreement, not without the hard conversations still ahead, but together, as in the same people, on the same land, under the same sky, with the same 250 years of shared history pressing on us from behind, and the same open, uncertain, extraordinary future opening up ahead. And we sing it loud, because singing is what humans do when the feeling is too big for ordinary speech. Because singing is what the people at the church did when there was nothing else they could do, and singing was the one thing the world could not take from them. Because singing is what the neighborhood bands did on hot summer evenings when the work was done and the air finally cooled. Because singing is what the children did in school auditoriums and church choirs and street corners, pulling together every thread of every tradition they had inherited and making it into something new. America, 250 years old, still rough, still new, still reaching, still bruised, still bold, still planting seeds in soil that doesn't always cooperate, still carrying the stories of every person who held the line and kept the promise and got back up and began again. Still, after everything, still proud. Not proud like a man who has never been wrong. Proud like a family that has been through everything together, the worst of it and the best of it, and is still sitting at the same table. That is what 250 years looks like. That is what we are. We stand together here and sing it loud. America, America, we're still proud.